Now, those are no doubt the biggest stories in entertainment. Shout out to all the new music coming out soon. I mean, it's not even Friday, and I'm already anticipating and excited. From Black Bones, this is thrilling, all right? Now, we're not done with the show. In fact, we've brought you the news, and we're about to break it down. Of course, our hot topic, tea. Now, it's no news that American singer Chris Brown has been faced by a popular and growing petition in South Africa to prevent the star from performing ahead of his scheduled show in Johannesburg this December. Now, joining me to talk about why this is important and what it stands for South African women is a spokesperson for Women for Change, the organizers of the petition, Bulelwa Adonis. Bulelwa, good to have you on the show.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, for those wondering, that seems like an innocent performance, right? What can you tell us about the motivation behind the petition? Why?
So our organization is coming from a standpoint of the fact that our country, South Africa, is deeply plagued by gender-based violence. And Chris Brown just happens to be an individual who has a record of GBV to his name. And I think a lot of people are under the assumption that we're fixated on what he did to Rihanna, that he did the crime, he did the time. But we're speaking about an individual who still has accusations to his name, up until recent years. So his abuse allegations were far beyond 2009. So that's what stemmed us to do this.
All right. I totally understand this, but tell me a little more about the state of gender-based violence in South Africa currently. I know that some records say that femicide rates are, in fact, 5 times higher in South Africa than the global average. Tell us more.
So South Africa's rape capital of the world. Like you said, our femicide rate is 5 times higher than the global average. We're deeply plagued by this. For us as an organization, we see this as a pandemic. We see this is something that's been plaguing us long before COVID, and it's something that's going to be around for long afterwards. If you don't mind, I have statistics with me that I can quickly share with everyone, just a few numbers. So between January and June this year alone, 19,961 rape cases were reported to the police, and 12,734 people were murdered between January and June just this year. And those are merely 2 statistics that I just read to you. So that should just give you a perfect picture of GBV in South Africa.
Wow. I mean, hearing those numbers, as a Nigerian, as an African, it's hard to listen to. But I have to ask, right now, how are most South Africans responding to the news, of this petition to have the government and show organizers cancel the Chris Brown concert? Any local authorities involved? Any response?
So there have been people in support of us. There's very big activists like Darren Camphor. He's a South African activist, but he's very outspoken. Another global organization that has been very loud about their support towards us is Girls Against Depression. Simultaneously, we've had a lot of backlash. Oh my goodness, I think this is the most intense amount of hatred we've received as an organization and individually myself, the founder of Women for Change. People have been gunning for us, death threats, harassment, online bullying. I've had to turn my profile on Instagram to private. So wow. It's 2 streams. So there's hatred, but then there's also support.
Let's talk about the hatred a little more. Does it surprise you? I mean, it seems like your motives are pure. You're only looking at the statistics and trying to prevent more of this happening. We get that, but are you surprised to get some of these hates at all?
In the activism space, I've said this before in another interview. I said that this is not a space of popularity. I've always had the attitude that I'm not coming into the space for friendship or for support, whatever the case may be. So we're not foreign to hatred and, trolling and bullying. But this is definitely the most intense amount of hate that we've ever received as an organization. So I don't know, I think it reveals true colors, it exposes true mentalities, it exposes the poor mentality of individuals in a sense that we are selective with our activism. You mentioned, I think Diddy was on the screen not too long ago, and the same people who are outraged by Diddy are the same people who are gunning us for talking about Chris Brown. So I don't know, it's not completely shocking because I know that he's beloved, people love him, they love his music, but it's really sad that when it's one of people's favorites that people will show you that they choose entertainment over the reality of our country.
I mean, although you talked about, the hatred, there's also support, like you mentioned. Currently, over 30,000 people have signed the petition. What does that feel like? And I'm guessing you feel like you're getting closer to achieving the goal.
Absolutely, it's very heartwarming. I mean, we're forever going to be grateful for our community. I mean, our community is actually a part of the reason why the petition was created in the first place. It wasn't just us as the team, but our community members hit us up in our DMs saying that, listen, you guys need to do something about this. And they also inspired us to do this. So to see people rally behind what they asked us to do is very heartwarming and very humbling that, we're not in this fight alone, that we're not leaving the responsibility of advocating and fighting against GBV for organizations or activists like ourselves. So it's a blessing and it's really humbling.
I mean, you had talked a little about this, and true, he's a global star, right? Everyone wants to see him perform. People do like him. And some have said, that he's paid the price for his past convictions related to gender-based violence and hasn't been convicted of any other charges. I hear that there's a documentary coming out in that regard, later this year. But what are your thoughts about this school of thought?
Like I did mention very briefly not too long ago, that is a lot of the backlash that we've received, that, we need to get over ourselves, we're very miserable, that he did the time and he was young or whatever the case may be. But the reality is, in our eyes, we feel like this is not a rehabilitated individual. Although I'm not sure if he's been convicted, but I know that there's been, I have them in front of me. I'm going to give you an example. For instance, in the year, I'm going to say the years that are closer to the time. So 2022, Chris Brown was sued by a woman claiming that he raped and drugged her in Miami. In 2023, Chris Brown and his crew allegedly assaulted Usher, for instance. So these are very recent dates, for instance. And then I saw another allegation this year. I just couldn't find that, but this is just exemplary and examples of the fact that although he did the time for Rihanna, although yes, he did his community service, although yes, he spent some time in jail, but we're still talking about an individual who has all of these allegations to his name. And I only said a few. There's a whole, we typed out a whole sheet about what he's been accused for. And that's a huge debate to say that, no, this person did his time, he's a beloved artist. And, I think his fans are really showing that really they will rally behind him. So yes, he did some time, but the real question is, has he been rehabilitated?
You know what, Bulelwa, there's still a huge part of this conversation we still need to talk about, and its influence on pop culture as a whole. Thank you for being here. You're still going to stay with us. Just wait a minute. We're going to take a few commercial breaks and come back, and hopefully we can still learn some more about the relevance in pop culture. All right, you're still watching East Central. We'll be back after this break. Thank you for staying with us. We are still watching East Central, and we're still breaking down this conversation, of course, with spokesperson, a Woman for Change, Bulelwa Adonis, who's here, and we've been breaking down the petition by South Africans that have exceeded 30,000 in number right now to prevent Chris Brown from performing. Now, Bulelwa, let's keep going with this. Now, how do you believe his performance would impact or perhaps affect, South African communities, whether he chooses to perform or can perform, or it's canceled completely? How do you think that would affect your community?
I think if his concerts are cancelled, number one, I think the message that it would send, it would tell not just people in the musical industry. I think it would send a strong message to say that as a country, finally we're deciding to be accountable. Finally, we're deciding to be strict. People are under the impression that this is a personal agenda, when really this is bigger than just Chris Brown. This is the fact that our country, South Africa, is already plagued by numerous predators. So we're not helping the issue. So I think if it was cancelled, it would be like a huge wake-up call to all South Africans, and not just South Africans. I feel like people in general, to say, you know what, there is actually an issue at hand that we need to stop brushing under the rug.
I mean, you have mentioned the statistics, and it's overwhelming. But like you said, this is beyond just canceling the performance, I believe. What are the goals, beyond this for Women for Change? What is the long-term picture?
So I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This is bigger than Chris Brown. So we're not fixated on Chris Brown as the individual or his concerts alone. And we're not wavering away from the work that we already do as an organization. We aim at educating and advocating and creating awareness against gender-based violence and femicide. And victim support is something that's very important to us, online victim support predominantly. And beyond whether he comes or not, whether the concert continues or is cancelled, our work doesn't stop. We're still here to create awareness against this pandemic. We're still here to fight against this pandemic, and we were hoping for a safer South Africa.
I mean, it is truly powerful what you're doing. But what message do you hope that this will send to other artists and the music industry as a whole? And do you think this would influence future events as well?
I definitely think so. I definitely think so because in the case of Chris Brown and with the backlash that we've received, we can tell that this is one of people's favorites. So if this were to go south in his eyes, if his concerts were cancelled, I think it would send a strong message to say, you know what? Accountability needs to be taken, that irrespective of people being our favorites, people being in our playlists, whatever the case may be, people who we love to watch perform and we hope and yearn to experience live, I think it would send a wake-up call to say, you know what, there's a deeper issue at hand that requires our undivided attention.
Now, besides people's emotions, of course, to his sensation, right? These big concerts, our performances, they're beneficial to the economy. It's good for local businesses and tourism. I'm hoping, are there any plans maybe to supposedly have another musician perform in place of Chris Brown? Because I'm sure people just want to go out in December and have a good time. Would there be any considerations if perhaps this is canceled?
I think what you're asking is such an important question. I think not just South Africans, I think Africans in general. I think we're people who like a good time. I think we are a nation as a whole that loves December, especially in South Africa, my goodness. So I think a lot of people are infuriated by the fact that we are stealing their December plans. Honestly speaking, we haven't gotten that far yet. We haven't been in contact with big concerts yet because there's no specific number that we're aiming for as yet. As a team, we're going to decide when we feel like we've had enough signatures, and then we'll go to your big concerts, and then we'll go to your home affairs, etc., and go beyond that. But you're right, concerts like these do help the economy. It's a lot of money. I think one ticket was 8,000 Rand, somewhere along those lines, if I'm not mistaken. So that is a lot of money into our economy. So I guess that unfortunately we're not in the position to say that we have another artist coming up, but I would hope that a petition like this would force people like big concerts to say, you know what, let's check the background of entertainers before we bring them into our country, and let's not let people down, because December means a lot to a lot of people, especially in South Africa. So this is a very important question, and we're not trying to take away from our economy. We're not trying to tell people how to spend their money whatsoever. I think we're just really trying to stress the issue of gender-based violence, honestly. This is bigger than Chris Brown. Yeah.
Well, like you said, it's an issue that hopefully we can tackle, and the sooner we do it, the better. I want to say thank you so much for your time. Of course, a spokesperson, Women for Change, Bulelwa Adonis. It's an honor having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a lovely evening.
You too.